Hey guys, it's Jen back with another video for Altenew. Today I am doing a focus on the Wavy Outlines die, and there will be 3 projects over on the blog, but I'm going to show you one in this video. And what I wanted to do, I thought that this set would be perfect for a die cut inlay because it has this outline and then it has all of these little pieces that I could inlay. And I wanted to try doing something on a scrapbook layout to make it span across multiple colors. So I have this vintage photo of myself when I was 6 months old, and I'm going to, what I want to do is I have these different colors of cardstock that I want to use that kind of match the tones of the photo, as you can see there. And I just want to, I don't know if I want the red or not. We'll see. But what I want to do is cut strips of each of these patterns to span the width of the layout, which is going to be 12 inches. And then I will have the flowers kind of overlapping. So I'll die cut them out of both cardstocks, have the also die cut them out of white, and then inlay it all together. And it's going to be complicated to understand until you see it, but it's very simple. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Alright, so you might notice that I have changed my colors a little bit. I decided to go for an ombre color scheme, and I wanted to, that pinky purple is something I'm obsessed with, so I wanted to go with that color as well. So I'm just cutting my papers into 2-inch by 7-inch strips, and I decided to go 7 inches because I wanted there to be more real estate for the flowers. And if I would have gone 6 inches, I think it might have been easier because I could have adhered all of the pieces together and die cut from them more easily using my larger die cut machine, my Spellbinder's Platinum. But I didn't. I made it tricky for myself by doing the 7 inches, and it ends up working out great. But if you want to try this, you could try it with a smaller size if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So I've laid out the colors there, and now what I'm going to do is figure out where I want to put these florals. And I'm purposely making sure that some of them go over multiple colors. And at this point, when I'm just resting the dies there, I'm kind of feeling like there's no way I'm going to be able to figure out what I want where without cutting it out. So I grabbed my white cardstock, and I'm using a really heavyweight cardstock. So I do end up cutting these and adding a shim just so that it has a little bit more. I just added a piece of cardstock on top so that they would cut all the way through because it is a really heavyweight cardstock. But now you can see I have them all cut out over there to the right, and I decide to just washi tape my papers together. As I mentioned before, if you wanted to make your papers 6 inches, you could leave them all taped together and they would go through the die cut machine all together. But I did not. So I'm just going to tape them together, and then I will take a few at a time and cut from them. So here they are all together. I love those colors. I think it looks pretty just as it is. But I'm going to go ahead and lay out these little flowers that I've cut. And this is what I will put in. These little white pieces are going to be placed inside the areas where I cut out. And you can see here I've got it kind of the way that I like it. I'm going to move things around just a little bit. But for the most part, this is where the flowers are going to go. And from here, I take a photo with my phone. I think you'll see me bring that up in just a second here so I can remember where I had put everything. And I'm trying to take a little extra care to make sure that where the flowers go over multiple colors, they go over it enough that there's not going to be the teensiest little sliver of color. You'll see what I mean, I think. So what I'm doing now is I'm going ahead and taping down the dies where I want them on the paper, and I'm going to start with just these 2 colors. So I'm just going to peel that up off of the washi tape, and I'm going to run these 2 through my die cut machine. and that will cut this out of the paper. And what you want to do is make sure that you save all of those inside pieces, because we're going to use those to lay them. That's what die cut inlay is, to lay them back inside the white cardstock, and you'll see that here in just a little bit. So now you can see that I have some cutout areas in my paper. I'm going to go ahead and place this other larger die. It's going to span 3 papers. But because I've cut the ones that were hanging off the edge on the left, I now have enough room to add in my 3rd piece of cardstock, which will be that darker yellow. So I'll do that here in just a minute. Like I mentioned, just make sure to keep all of the pieces that go inside. It'll be a puzzle later. Luckily, puzzles are my favorite thing ever. So this ends up being fun for me. But I think it's a good idea to just poke out all of the little pieces and keep each flower in its own little pile. I think that will work well. You could also back these cardstocks with some adhesive, like a sheet of adhesive, and then it would keep them all stuck together, and that might be something easy for you too, and it would be easy to inlay them that way too. But like I mentioned, I'm doing things the hard way today, so it's all good. I apologize if my voice is crazy or if I sound crazy, because I have a cold and I'm a little out of it, but it's all good. So I'm just poking out the pieces here. I will skip through some of this because you don't need to watch me cutting these out. I think that you can get the idea, but you can definitely, for me, this was a fun process, a really fun process. And so I'm just going to keep cutting, and I'm going to keep placing all of my little pieces in little piles so that I can put them back together later. And you may be thinking, why don't you just put the white die cuts on top of the striped paper? That looked cute too. That is true. And if you want to get a similar look with a lot more ease, then you could just put the white die cuts on top of the paper. But there's something about the inlay that just looks really cool. It's a smooth finish. It just, in real life, it has that extra little detail, and it just bumps it up a notch. So I really like the die cut inlay. Plus, for me, the process is fun. So here you can see that I've got part of that glued down to my background, and now I am going to finish up and glue the other 3 strips to my background so that I can get gluing all of these little pieces in to the little holes here. There are lots of little pieces, so that is something that is you're going to have to keep track of. So I'm just using some regular adhesive for now. I will go back in later and add a little bit of liquid adhesive where it's needed. But for now, I'm just placing it down quickly with some rolling adhesive and lining everything up. Now, these weren't exactly lined up, and you'll see that I have to cut a little smidge off of the top later, but it's really not a big deal, and it ends up working out great. So I'm really happy with the way this layout came out. I love this color scheme. I definitely want to use it again and again. It's just, those colors are my jam. So I wanted to cut one more little blue flower from the top. I feel like when you go off the edge on one side, you should go off the edge on other sides. So there are a few flowers going off the edges on the top and the bottom and the sides. So now we're reaching the point where we can glue these white flowers in. And so I'm going to just add some liquid adhesive and glue those all down. Some of them will hang off the edges, and I'll just trim those later. But for now, I can just glue these in, and I'm just kind of finding, the places where they fit, gluing them down, and then they're ready for the inner pieces that I have been saving so faithfully off to the side. So I'm going to skip through gluing those all in. This looks cool too. I think that just having those white pieces glued in gives a cool effect. But I'm going to go ahead and inlay these. So I will show you one flower. I'm using the help of a little quick sticks tool. You could use anything that you like. You could use tweezers or something like that to pick up these little pieces if you wanted to. Again, you could, if you wanted, put double-sided adhesive on the back of all of these papers so that you could just peel and stick them, and that would be really easy too. So whatever works for you, that's what you should do. So this kind of gluing, this that some people find tedious, I really find enjoyable. So this is the way that I chose to do it today. And sometimes if some of the pieces stay in the flower, you can place the flower over the top and kind of poke the pieces into the holes. And I already put glue in those holes, so when I poke the pieces in, they kind of stick down. So that works out well too. So you'll find little tricks along the way as you're doing it that kind of help you out a little bit. So I'm just going to continue to do this same thing with all of the flowers across the entire thing. And here is a gorgeous close look. I'm kind of showing you how it's flat. Those flowers aren't sticking up. It's all kind of smooth, and that is the beauty of die cut inlay. I really, really love the look of it. You can see that it's crooked at the top. I'm going to fix that after I trim off all of these little pieces hanging over the edges. So I'm just using my giant scissors for that. And then I will use my trimmer to just cut a little bit off of the top. And you saw the top of my head, which looks so beautiful. So I really love the way that these colors coordinate with my photo. Older photos have a tendency to be kind of dark and very yellow and orangey. And so I feel like these colors help brighten it up, but also coordinate with it. I wanted to cover the seam where those pattern paper, or those pieces of cardstock met the white cardstock. So I just grabbed another piece of white cardstock and I'm scoring 2 lines in the top just to give it a little detail. And I'm going to pop that up. So I will just grab some foam adhesive. I'm cutting it down just a little bit. I don't want it to be too wide. But I'm going to grab some foam and place it on the back and then adhere that down. So I'm using just some fun foam. When I need a large area covered, this works well because it's inexpensive and you can cut it to whatever size you need. And so I will go ahead and glue that down, and I'm using some double-sided tape on the back of that. It's adhesive on one side and then you have to add adhesive to the other side. So just doing that quickly, and then I will place that over the seam. Seriously, I can't stop looking at this because I just really love the way that those florals look on those stripes. I think it's so cute, and I want to try it again with maybe a different die. So now I'm ready to kind of finish my page. I got to figure out a title and maybe a couple of embellishments, but really the feature is that it kind of looks like a wall, like wallpaper there's like not a baseboard, a chair rail beneath it, and then the white wall, doesn't it? I kind of like that. So I decide to cut out the word bouncer from the same colors of cardstock that I used on the background. And it has 1 extra letter, so I'm going to add in what color I would have added next if there would have been a 7th color, and that's kind of a bluey, tealy green color. And I am going to cut those letters out of the tall alpha dies. And those are really great for, it's a nice tall, like it says, tall, thin alphabet. And you can fit a lot of word into a small amount of space. And so that's what I wanted for this. And I just love the way that this looks too. That word hello came from a previous project. It is the Fancy Hello, I think it's called Fancy Hello die. Everything will be linked in the video description as well as over on the blog post on the Altenew scrapbook blog. But that hello die just matched perfectly, and so I thought I would just go ahead and use it. Any extras I always keep in a little box with my different die cuts and stuff, and so I can pull them out for future layouts. So at this point I was thinking, what's a way that I can add in that kind of volcano lake color that I used for the R? And so I pull out my ink and I pulled out this dot art stamp set and thought about stamping these leaves on some vellum and cutting them out and using them. It did not look right to me, and so I will not end up using it. That doesn't stop me from thinking about it for a little while though. So at this point I'm thinking, what else could I do? And I remembered there were leaves in this die set, not just those flowers and flower clusters. So I decided to die cut a few of the leaves out of the same color cardstock that I cut the R from. And I'm just going to cut 4 little leaves. I'll only end up using 2 of them. I'm using some washi tape to hold them in place so they don't move around while I try to die cut them. You may notice that I am using the Altenew Mini Blossom. I just got it and it is so smooth, guys. I really like it. So I'm just going to put those 2 little leaves next to the word hello, and that draws your eye even more to that title. I thought about adding some into the leaves on the background, but I didn't want to take away from the prettiness that was going on. There's this little phrase that I think about using. I actually stamp it down, but I'll end up covering it up. And it says, I don't know, you are absolutely amazing. But I decide against it, and I'll tell you why. I wanted to do something fun on the background, and you'll see that here in just a minute, just to add a little more interest up at the top. And I pull out a stamp set and it has the perfect phrase for me to put under my title. So I'll do that in a minute. I decided to add a little white mat to my photo, and then I'm just adding some adhesive to the back, some foam adhesive, so that it stands at the same height as that little border strip that I added. You can see that I also cut out cardstock letters to put behind my colorful letters because I wanted them to be thicker, and so I have 3 layers of white cardstock behind the color, and I really like that look. I do it often, and it kind of makes your own chipboard letters. I really like it. So I'm just going to glue those down. I'm using the top of that strip as a guide to help me get everything straight. And again, I just am absolutely loving the way this is coming together. This is my favorite thing I've made in a little while, I think. Those colors just make me happy. And the way that the flowers look on them, yes, please. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down that hello. It's very delicate, so I'm just adding little dots of glue, and I'm centering it above the word bouncer, and then I'm going to add these little leaves to the left of it. And that looks really cute. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp down that phrase that I did before. I often use a little scrap of white cardstock to test things out before I commit to it. And I did like the way this looked, so I'm using my Volcano Lake ink and stamping that below the title. And I really liked the look of it, but I just found a more perfect phrase when I pulled out these other stamps. So I pulled out the Sentiments and Quotes stamp set because it has little stars on it. And whenever I think of baby, I think of stars, and I wanted to stamp some stars tone on those background stripes. And you can see I already have the colors picked out to the left. But on this stamp set, it says, "Who's the cutest baby ever?" ? And it's meant for like a baby card or something. But I thought that it was very appropriate for myself. So I went ahead and added that beneath my title. Just a little tongue-in-cheek, I think I'm funny kind of deal. So I added this on just a piece of cardstock, and I'm popping it up, and you can see me running my fingernail across the edges. I'm just giving them a little bit of texture, and I'm going to do the same thing to this white strip along the middle. I have been a little bit lazy about using my sewing machine lately, which I really love for adding texture, but if you kind of distress the edges with your fingernail, it works just as well. So I'm stamping the stars just in the empty spaces. I think I used buttercream for that lightest color. The second color, I accidentally stamped the wrong color first. It's supposed to be Honey Drizzle, and I stamped Maple, maybe. I think that's how it goes. I'll link to all of the colors below. But you can see one of the stars is darker on that yellow, that first yellow part. So I'm going to cover that up later. but I'm using Peach Perfect on that melon color, and I'm using Puffy Heart on my favorite pinky purple color, and I'm going to use Sea Glass on the blue. And I really love this. The tone-on-tone look doesn't distract from the colors, and it doesn't distract from the pattern, but it just adds a little something. It's just an extra detail, and I love stuff like that. So I'm really happy with the way that looks, and now I am going to figure out how I want to finish embellishing this. So I thought about adding some little puffy stickers that I had in my stash. There were a couple of die cuts that I had pulled from the Live Your Dream collection from Altenew. I'm looking through, this is the little bin I was talking about before. I put leftovers from other projects in here, as well as the little die cuts that I have from the different Altenew collections. And I found this one that said enjoy the ride, which I thought was perfect because I'm in this little bouncer and I keep pulling that little chipboard piece out and never using it on a layout because it doesn't quite work, but it definitely works here, and the blue matched the blue color that I had over on the right pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right above my title, just tucking it in there. And then I found these little gold stars from my stash that I'm going to put around my title, again drawing the emphasis towards the title and the photo. And I typed up my journaling, so I'm just going to go ahead and glue that down on underneath the title, and I'm going to make it so that the words or the word strips kind of follow the lines. So right underneath the title, the photo kind of stops that first line of journaling, and then the second line goes a little further, and then the third line can go all the way underneath the photo. So I'm just kind of trying to follow the design a little bit of the layout. So after I get those glued down, I'm almost done. I said it already, but I really love the way this came together. And that doesn't always happen. So when it does, I'm okay tooting my own horn. And I hope that you are too. Be proud of what you make. And these Altenew products are always so gorgeous. You know, I love florals, and so I'm just so happy to use them. All right, so I've got this little gold label, and I thought it would be nice to offset the gold in the stars a little bit. So I'm just going to stamp the date. I wanted to stamp the date of the photo as well as the date of the journaling, because the journaling talks about my daughter in one of these bouncy swings too. And so I didn't want to just put it as the date that I was in the photo. So I am kind of finagling my little roller date stamp and just using the middle numbers that roll for the day to stamp 1985, which is when this photo was taken. So I kind of I don't know, I had to jerry rig it a little bit, but it works out and I'm happy with the way it looks. You can see I used a little post-it note to kind of mask off some of the areas I didn't want to stamp. So I could have just typed it up or wrote it on there, but of course I had to make things difficult because that's how I am doing things today. So I'm putting a little foam adhesive on the back to raise it up a little, and that is going to complete this after I add some gold splatters. My video cut out right as I was doing them. So here are some close-up photos of this layout. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did create some other projects using these same dies. 2 of them are cards that I created using the leftovers from this layout. So you can see all of those colorful little details there. And I just added some sentiments and glued all of those florals to the bottom. This other layout is a 6x8 where I dry embossed on the background. So be sure to head over to the Altenew blog to check it out. Here are all of the projects together. Again, lots more information over on the Altenew scrapbook blog, which is linked below. Thank you so much for watching, and hope that you'll subscribe, and I hope to see you back here again very soon.